So, yes, I believe we are. Well, he's invited, but no response yet.
He
so.
called you out though, so you know you can't let that go.
I believe we are. Well, he's invited, but
he'll come in and he'll be like.
So, anyways, we are having the after show for the non-sequitur. Well, actually, it was the ideology version of non-sequitur with Casey and Kyle. They had one of my Facebook friends, Joe. Let me give you some brief information about Joe and why this kind of all came about. I've known him for a while. It's Virtual Maya. He actually, I do believes everything that he says. I do not believe he's a Poe, but I think there's other issues going on. But I haven't really spoken with him verbally. I've only corresponded with him written. So I was hoping that maybe between Kyle and KC, they could kind of suss out his true nature kind of thing. And I got to tell you, I think it just made matters worse because I'm more confused now.
You're going to have your shot there, Buckaroo, on the 14th.
Yes.
Yeah, the dinosaur, the Christmas for dinosaurs. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I know he's going to be joining that, but there's so many things that we can unpack. Just what he said tonight, that literally each one could take its own after show.
But why do we want to? That's the ultimate question. Why do we want to?
I don't know. You invited him.
Well, I mean, he wants to keep Dr. Mays. I mean, you know, but I just wanted to point out a
Don't
few
answer
things.
my rhetorical questions, Casey.
Dr. Mays and I were talking before you guys all came in.
By the way, everybody can call me Herman.
Oh yeah, okay, Herman.
Yeah.
And by the way, Herman was one of our all-time favorite guests. He was one that debated Kent and just completely kicked his ass.
Cheap plug. Absolutely. He's going to be taking in the big debate, Dr. He's going
to be one talking to Dr. Nathaniel Jeanson, which is a huge event because I don't think anybody understands how damn difficult it is to get somebody from Answers in Genesis to come on. It is nearly impossible. They do not do anything that's not in a controlled situation.
A lot of paperwork.
A lot of agreements, a lot of hand holding and ball cupping in order to make this happen.
Dr. Mason, while we have you, wouldn't you agree though? The words inside the book aside, isn't it like the most beautiful book you've ever seen in your life, like visually?
No, I've seen a lot of books, Kyle.
He's very well read. Okay, no, I mean I think it's visually appealing. I mean
it's they put together. I mean anybody can put together a nice book if you have enough money.
Dr. Mason, we're trying to save face.
I know. You're very.
I don't think Herman can look past some of the content in there. Matter of fact, one of the things that Joe brought up, maybe Herman, you can touch on, because I thought this was something where he obviously has watched video. He's been around. He's on my channel and he's on Facebook, so he knows these arguments that we've talked about before. And one of the things we've talked about in depth ad nauseum was human chromosome 2 fusion. But he didn't seem to have an understanding of that. Matter of fact, Dr. Jeanson talks about it in his book. Do you remember on page 210? He basically just alludes to the fusion and then references Dr. Tompkins, but doesn't give any actual information of why he asserts that it's not an actual fusion. Do you want to kind of explain maybe what that human chromosome fusion 2 that he was alluding to? Because it might be coming up in September.
Yeah, and I actually was in a debate. I don't know if you've ever heard of Charles Jackson before, but he's another creationist guy that sort of professional going around churches and giving talks and things like that. And I debated him a few weeks ago, and I'll have to send you the link to that video, but he brought it up as well. They always bring it up, but it's just that chimpanzees and humans have different numbers of chromosomes. And so how do you explain that if they came from a common ancestor? And chimpanzees have more chromosomes than we do. So where did that missing chromosome go? Well, if you look at one of our chromosomes, number 2, it has the features of the ends of chromosomes it has in the middle. And there's all these sort of landmarks on a chromosome that our chromosome, human chromosome 2, has extra. And so the best way to explain that is that 2 chromosomes fuse together end to end. And so that the ends of the chromosome now are in the middle. And the telomeres, the parts that are in the center, there's 2 of those. Or sorry, the centromeres there's 2 of those. So
there's an active, there's a cryptic centromere and there's an active one,
Right. There's only one. You only have one that actually works. One is sort of like a dead one. But creationists say these weird things that I don't think are really like Tompkins and these guys. They say, well, there's a gene there. Like at the fusion point, there's a gene there and it gets transcribed. It's like, well, so what? There's genes at the ends of chromosomes too. And in fact, the gene that gets transcribed, it doesn't get transcribed very much. So it has a very low transcription. So it's hard to say if it's really doing anything really. But that's a gene that typically you find at the end of primate chromosomes in the middle of chromosome 2. So even that is more evidence that it's a fusion.
I've asked, we'll get some feedback. I've asked Dr. Jeanson about that a little bit, by the way. He hasn't gotten back to me yet. He says he will. Because I asked him, because Tompkins, the gene that he's talking about is called the DDX11L2 gene. And it's part of the DDX11 family. And what he does is he takes the transcription levels from the family and then kind of applies it ubiquitously across all the DDX family and says, oh, look, this gene is transcribed, meaning that it's read. And he doesn't say, he still says it's a non-coding protein. It doesn't code for protein, right?
There's no reason in that idea that explains our chromosome 2 and its structure. There's nothing in that idea that says there can't be a gene there, even an active gene. But
the transcription is only on the canonical. It's not across the fusion side. There's no. If you look at
right, I don't think it's across the fusion side either. Yeah,
but he says that it is, and yet that's what we wanted to ask him. Well, you're saying that this is transcribed across the fusion site. Where's the reads for this, and how much is it? Even
if it were, I still don't think that's a big deal.
So I don't know what his argument is either on that. That's another question we'd asked him. If it is a gene, so what does it matter?
As I understood it, the transcription rate at that area is extremely low.
3.9 RBKM.
Yeah, it's so it's not even really doing anything. Like I read a paper recently that said that there's a lot of transcription in our genomes that is noise, basically. So you have RNA polymerases will kind of bind willy-nilly all over the place, and they'll get started a little bit and they'll make something, but then they'll stop. So through a lot of your genome is being transcribed into something, but that doesn't mean it's doing anything.
Well, he makes the argument there's like the transcription binding sites there, and again,
yeah, but there's transcription binding sites, potential ones everywhere. That doesn't mean it's a gene necessarily. You could make random pieces of DNA that have activity and are transcribed.
Well, this is one of the reasons I wish Joe was in here, because this is the information that he needs to know if he's going to be bringing up things like human chromosome 2, because he says, oh, it's not evidence for evolution or common ancestry. And I think even Ruhiv kind of has come around. You know Ruhiv, obviously. Yeah, I mean, great guy, very, very knowledgeable in genetics, but he used to say that it wasn't really great evidence for common ancestry. But I think he's even kind of coming around, because as you put it, what other explanation is there for the difference in chromosome number between 46 and 48? There's obviously we related to chimpanzees. We have to explain the change in chromosome number. And did we not only predict this, we kind of knew about this as early as like the 80s. We knew that it was a fusion, but we couldn't really sequence that or show what it where it was actually until much later. And then they actually
right.
Yeah.
And besides, it's only one piece of evidence. It's like even if that were not the case for some reason, or there's some other explanation for it, that you still have mounds of other evidence that link humans with a common ancestry with other things. So it's not like we've rested the entire common ancestry argument on that one thing.
Right. It just happens to be all this stuff, like kind of like it works in unison with each other. And so we would expect certain things, and if we find it, great, but if not, then we come up with some other explanation. And that's how science works.
Yeah, and the weight of the evidence is on the side of common ancestry, and it's just overwhelming. And I think a lot of the reason people latch on to the chromosome 2 one is it tends to be one that's easy to explain to people. So that's why I think creationists are very keen to debunk it, because they know it's something that your average person can kind of wrap their head around, and they don't want that.
Casey and John is going to take off real quick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was good meeting everybody.
Yeah, thanks guys.
Later.
Nice to meet you,
Matt.
man.
Good show. It was really, really entertaining, actually. Sorry, we didn't get much on the after show, but on the after shows, we kind of go all over the place.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's fine. We'll see y'all later.
Later.
Bye, bye.
So this guy's wife isn't letting him out tonight, I guess, huh?
Hey,
Steve?
well, one more quick thing, you guys, Steve, and I think you'll find this interesting. Did any of you catch where he mentioned? I think he alluded to mineral evolution. We're talking about early Earth and the formation of amino acids and proteins.
Real quick, Dr. Herman, your mic is, I thought it was gauged, but your mic, I think your mic is scraping on your shirt, and it's,
Oh, sorry.
yeah,
I got
really loud. Maybe we can touch on that a little bit too, because I think, I hate to really dive into abiogenesis kind of thing, but recently people have been talking on my Facebook page about RNA and the RNA world hypothesis, and that RNA obviously isn't really too stable in water as compared to DNA because it's not as hydrophobic. But Dr. Mays, can you kind of address that maybe a little bit about this narrative that's being put out that like RNA world hypothesis is impossible, because that's his bunk.
I don't know.
Steve?
I mean, there's two that people forget. I think people that, in the middle of the 20th century, there's Oparin and Haldane, and they're the ones that first, before the Uri Miller experiments, they're the ones that first started talking about origin of life hypotheses. And Oparin was more of a metabolism first hypothesis, where he thought the first sort of proto-life, the thing that was important first was metabolism. And Haldane's argument was a genetics first hypothesis. And I think now people focus a lot more on the genetics first thing, because that's the RNA world one. But that doesn't necessarily need to be the case. So I don't know if, an RNA world scenario is necessarily the right hypothesis for this. What I tell people about the origin of life is it's an open question. It's an open question, and it's an ongoing, very active area of research. It's not one where people have reached a consensus on yet.
Oh, absolutely. But the argument is saying that they're saying it's impossible, and that's
I wouldn't say it's impossible. Of course, it's not impossible, but the evidence for it is, I wouldn't swear that that it has a lot of solid evidence either.
Well, it has a lot of. It still has
There's
a lot
of compelling. The RNA world hypothesis has a lot of compelling clues in it that make sense. But there have been some pretty serious criticisms of it. I think. So what? I mean,
I think our gentleman Joe has been watching Netflix. There's a Nova special called Life's Rocky Start, where they delve into some hypothetical scenarios with that. So I believe that's where he's probably getting at.
I actually saw that too, and that's actually a pretty good documentary, because it actually focuses a lot more on the metabolism first stuff. So a lot of those ideas. There's ideas now about very alkaline vents, and they're not like these black smoker vents like you've seen where it's a big chimney stack. There's sort of a flat area where there's hot water venting up from some geothermal source, and it's venting up through these rocks that are very porous. And the idea is, in that environment is where you get proton gradients can form. And proton gradients across some kind of membrane is the fundamental aspect of metabolism. That's how all metabolism in every cell, and even photosynthesis, everything is based on that. So,
I had watched something not too long ago exactly on that very thing. That it wasn't a cell, but it was a very, very basic protocell using the first type of ATP to be produced.
Yeah,
and it was amazing.
But the key you have to get before you get that even is you have to get these sorts of gradients build up like that. And there's ideas. So there's a good book by Nick Lane called The Vital Question, which is a good popular book on origin of life hypotheses. And he kind of talks a lot about that alkaline vent metabolism first type stuff. And that involves where mineral surfaces are very, very important in getting biochemistry started. That we couldn't have biochemistry start unless there was some surface to act as a catalyst for it. And that's where the mineral stuff comes into play.
Nice. It was a pleasure to watch your face kind of beam up talking about it. I can see how excited you are about that. So
Yeah,
really cool.
it is pretty cool. I mean, it's not my field, so I can't talk very authoritative on it, but I read a little bit on it, and it's super interesting stuff for sure.
Yeah, the abiogenesis stuff to me is a lot more complicated than regular biology stuff, because I don't have any kind of formal training really in chemistry beyond what I learned in nuke school, which was just very specific to reactors. So
the hard thing,
organic's not my thing.
The hard thing for creationists is that it's an open question, and they don't like open questions. But scientists love open questions. Like if you tell a scientist, well, we don't know something, that's the kind of question I think that's fantastic, right? They think that's like, they think that calls all of science into some doubt if there's an open question about anything.
That's the whole creationist narrative, though. I mean, look, I was listening to part of it, and I haven't finished it yet, but it's like Saiten Brunicaid and Shannon Q had a discussion the other night, and Saiten, who, honestly, he's actually a decent guy. I gotta admit, I've talked to him on Twitter, and he's not as bad as I thought he was going to be, but his argumentation is hard, but he relies on epistemic uncertainty. And it is if you don't know something, and he fills it in with, his version of whatever deity. And I think that's exactly what creationists do, because like you said, they don't like uncertainty. They don't like not knowing something. And I'm the same way as far as I want to know everything. We can't. But like you said, if science says, hey, we don't know why it is something the way it is, let's find out. But a creationist says, we don't know why it is, ergo God. And I think that's the difference.
Yeah, because they only care about using science to prop up their ideological position. They don't care about science as in itself. They don't care about knowing anything about nature.
But this guy's an atheist.
About propping up their ideology.
How do you explain that, Herman? That Joe's an atheist?
Is he?
Yeah, that was like the most bizarre thing.
Wait. So he's not the devil is hiding fossils guy. He just wants to join in on that. Is that what you're saying?
I know. That's a good question, actually, because I'm not sure. I know he doesn't believe in fossils, but it wasn't the devil hiding them. It was a group, an organization of man that was doing it.
Steve?
Yeah, Luca, go ahead.
Sorry to jump in.
No, go ahead, please.
I think I can explain Joe.
Give it a shot.
I think what you witnessed tonight, and I say that this from, excuse my accent, first of all, I'm from Croatia, so you will have to bear with me.
Oh, I've talked to you before. I know your accent. I can understand you just fine.
Okay, thank you. And great show, guys, and Herman, brilliant debate with Hovind, just amazing and very educational. So anyway, what I was saying, as far as Joe goes, what you witnessed tonight on NonSequitur or ideology, that was pure like school example of psychosis, probably chronic, probably maybe even schizophrenia. And at one point it was obvious that his mother was giving him some pills, some meds.
And it wouldn't be surprising, but the problem is I really hate to do, any kind of having anybody do analysis or differential diagnosis over like a hangout, right? For especially when it's a mental disorder. But I'm not disagreeing with you that I think that seriously something is wrong with him. But
the point I wanted to give across or say is that although these things can be really amusing, and a lot of people you had on the show weren't mentally unstable or had any disorders, like Ken Hovind, Jeranism, and those kind of guys. And although it can be very amusing, in this case, I think it was a little too much. I think
Arianism is one of those that has a disorder himself as well.
I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying. It's my opinion.
No, and I think that's a very fair opinion, Luca. I really do. But here's the thing. Like you've heard of the dumb fuck of the year, right? In order to be the dumb fuck of the year, you cannot have any kind of mental defect or disorder. You have to be ignorant by choice, willfully stupid, right? Because we mock those that are willfully stupid. And I think that's perfectly fine to do that. I mean, when you have G-mans of the world, when you have true empiricism of the world, mockery is all that is left. It's just entertainment. But if you have somebody who has a serious type of problem, like a psychosis or schizophrenia, I can't mock them. I think they need to be treated completely different.
And we don't know that he has that. And I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't even want to get into that conversation that he might.
Like,
we deserve to win dumb fuck of the year, honestly, because we keep doing this to ourselves.
We're already nominated.
So yeah, I hereby nominate Kyle and Steve for dumb fuck of the year.
I mean, I think the guy, to me, seemed pretty sane, for lack of a better word.
Me too.
Really? I have to disagree. I think he didn't sound sane at all.
Well, I know a lot of people that don't have any mental or emotional problems that believe some crazy stuff. Mm-hmm. You know, I've seen people like that all the time, and they don't have any problems. I think he wants the attention. I think he's like a lot of these people who troll on the internet. They thrive off the attention. I think I think he's maybe a little lonely. You know, he maybe has a chip on his shoulder about something, although he seems to sort of enjoy it. A lot of these people get kind of, you know, defensive and angry. He wasn't angry. He was kind of smiling and laughing. He's kind of, so I think
that's the whole point. Sorry to jump in.
That's okay.
Sorry. That's the whole point. In my experience, and I have a lot of it. I mean, I worked 10 years in a psychiatric clinic and worked with all kinds of patients. And the points that you are talking about, that he was enjoying, that he wants attention, that is all true. But he wants attention in his own in the narrative that he has in his mind. If you can.
Yeah,
understand.
but I wouldn't think he was controlling that narrative very much. No. I mean, it was
of course he wasn't, because he isn't stupid. So
right.
No, he didn't seem like to be stupid. He's not like George Lujack level, right? I mean, yeah. I'll give him that.
Yeah, he's not stupid. He
marginally, though.
It's important to have those conversations with people like that, though, because if anybody is questionably, or may somehow feel that same way, I think it's important to show that there is another side to it, and maybe kind of contrast that. And if you are on the fence in that realm, you can see where, wait, maybe that does look a little ridiculous.
Yeah, totally. No, I'm all for the discussion. But I mean, at least he wasn't. Okay, look at. He wasn't as arrogantly stupid as like George. George is arrogantly stupid. He actually thinks he knows something. Joe, he at least will admit, well, I really don't know much about that, and not try to come off as if he's like an expert on something. What George thinks that he's an expert on everything.
He's like a decent guy too. I mean,
yeah, Joe's a nice guy. Like I said, that's why I turned him over to you and said, see what you can make of it. Because I mean, I never had an issue with him on Facebook. He's always been cordial to me.
Well, yeah. I think if he has some legitimate mental or emotional diagnosis, he shouldn't be on the internet in these chat rooms. I mean, it's the worst thing you can do if you have a mental or emotional disorder is get on some.
I agree. I don't think he has that. I think he just likes the thrill of being a contrarian.
That's what I wanted to say, kind of.
But do you know why I think that he might? Because he reminds me so much of MK. And MK literally does have a mental disorder.
Part of the problem with all this is that if you had to second guess everyone's mental health of every guest you have on that show,
Right. We wouldn't have a
you
show.
would never have anybody on that show.
Right.
No, I'm not saying that. This is just my personal opinion, and maybe I'm a bit too emotional because I know what it is.
But here's the thing: it's not so much talking to them. I even if they have a mental disorder, I have no problem talking. I've talked to people that I've known have mental disorders, like that one guy that I talked to about rockets. Right? They even told me, "Hey, Steve, you know, he's got issues, but he really wants to learn something. Can you have a discussion with him, with Reds and other people, and talk about rockets?"
Sure.
Right? I mean, that's fine.
We weren't mocking him, you know. Like
you guys weren't. Right.
We weren't exploiting the fact that he, you know, could have some. That's why I don't even like going down this road and does he not have? He wanted to come on. He held his own. He was very lucid while he was talking. I just think that he has some warped views, and you know, at the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with that. You know,
but I'm not gonna mock him as much as I would like George. Like George just deserves nothing but mockery.
Well, I mean,
George.
He came. Yeah. He let it all out, and the chips will fall where they may, just like they always do. Do you
think you got him to think at all? I mean, I noticed the penny wasn't dropping, but he had a few kind of okay, and then he would just go right back into his diatribe.
I mean, at the end of the day, all his answers went back to it's a hoax. Like when he didn't have an answer, it wasn't okay. Maybe could be a point. It was, well, that's just because it's a hoax, like meteorites. Those are fireworks that are shot off into the sky and landing.
Saying is a symptom. That's a symptom.
Yeah, because you're always trying to explain things using weird, fantastic type of stories.
Yeah, but I mean, is it really though? I mean, look at the flat Earth people. I mean, it's just a way to keep the narrative going. It's a way to keep. Wait a minute! Don't dismiss me yet.
But that's how a person with psychosis would do it, right? If they had delusions of some kind, they would come up with all these things.
Sure, that doesn't mean that they do have, and I'd rather not guess whether they do or not. You know,
or let's not speculate on somebody's mental condition.
Right. I think you just got to take it.
I think it's appropriate to speculate sometimes, because again, you know, I don't want to mock somebody that has a mental problem, and I don't think there's something wrong with speculating. I think there's something wrong with asserting that somebody does, right?
Well,
you're not qualified to do so.
Just because we're having an after show on the heels of that conversation, I don't think it's appropriate. Let me put that, especially without him here to defend himself.
He's invited, you know.
I know, but I'm just saying I don't feel that's appropriate to guess on somebody's mental case.
Here's my worry that I have. Like, let's just explore for a moment that he's a troll. You know, what does that mean? He's perfectly knows what he's doing, and he's just there to sort of aggravate people.
He's good at it.
And he's good at it.
But I don't think he is. He's been around for quite some time, and I mean, Virtual Meyer has videos out. I've seen a lot of trolls. He doesn't come off to me as somebody who's just doing it for the lulz.
Some people just have weird views. I mean, some people just think batshit crazy stuff, and
a lot of people have batshit crazy stuff. Lot.
Too damn many.
Yeah, I don't see it being any different. He's just got a couple of humdingers that most don't.
I just wanted to say that you guys were really polite with him, and that part was really okay by me, and I enjoyed the show. But what this does is actually, if I will put an if here, if he is psychotic, if he has some kind of disorder, this is actually fueling it. It's not helping.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe.
But you don't know. I mean,
I mean, I'm always going to go on this side. I'm always going to say, look, unless I have confirmation, I'm going to assume a person is competent enough to go on a channel, talk about these things, and let the chips fall where they may. Right? Until I know for a fact, like MK, I know has a mental disorder. Right? So I can't really mock him as much as I used to. Because it's public knowledge now.
It may have done him some good to get on a stream and let it out. You know,
possible, sure.
Didn't think, because you know he did say, he made several alludes to the point where, you know, I sit around and I think about these things myself. I come to these conclusions when I'm thinking. So
exactly,
and let it out. And you know, I was happy to let him do that. Whether he
might be therapeutic, yeah.
has some kind of mental capacity. I don't know. Like I said, I don't think it's my place to guess on that. He came on, he expressed his views. We weren't out there to, try to make him look stupid or anything like that. We tried to present him with, alternatives to what he was saying. All in all, I think it was a way more beneficial thing than it could be.
Oh, I agree with that. I mean, like I said, I don't think there's any detriment of having him on and talking about this stuff at all. I think that it does maybe help him in some ways if even if he took one thing away from that, it's beneficial.
But I mean, it is a bit of I don't think we should mock. It should be about on what levels we should mock them either. I think that's.
Oh, I'm a big into mockery. You know me, dude. I am sorry. When you're dealing with people like the level of true empiricism and G-Man and George Luchak, all that's left is mockery because they deserve nothing else.
Well, I mean, I guess it's your somebody's perception. I don't think that it. To me, I don't look at it and say he could have something wrong with him, so therefore I should mock him less. If you make a statement there's something like completely ridiculous, and you've been presented with the alternative or the facts of the matter, and you still choose to turn to that in light of that, then that's one thing. But
and that's what a lot of them do, though. I mean, to me, willful ignorance. When you have, people advocating things like flat Earth, I'm sorry that at that point, do you really think that they deserve anything but mockery? I can't take any flat earther seriously, not one.
I don't know.
It's like Thomas Jefferson said, that ridicule's the last weapon against an unintelligible idea. Sometimes stuff is so stupid that's all
it's all you got left. You're right. You're
nice one too.
You're at base level at that point. And by the way, Gage, welcome. It's been a while. How you been?
Sir. Not bad.
How's Pimp Monk doing?
Oh, he's making it. YouTube's doing the YouTube thing, and it sucks, but yeah, his show's doing pretty well. I've been enjoying the hell out of it.
Yeah. I like Pimp.
Oh yeah, he's a good dude.
I might pop on to his Morning Wood sometime later this week or next week.
Hope you do. Be a good time.
Have you?
What, Aaron?
Here's the thing. Have you guys ever heard of this QAnon stuff?
QAnon?
Don't send me down.
You haven't heard of it?
Refresh my memory. There's so much stupid idea.
Parlaying into Donald Trump.
Yeah, it was a guy. A guy gets on 4chan, on some group on 4chan, and he says he has sort of inside information that Donald Trump and the military are going to overthrow the government, and it's coming soon. They're going to overthrow this sort of cabal of people that have been controlling the government, sort of under the radar, sort of the, what do they call it, the
secret
shadow,
the secret state,
shadow state or whatever. And he's going to overthrow it. And now people are showing up at these Trump rallies with these QAnon signs and T-shirts and all this stuff. And that makes me think that you get some just guy who's just doing it for the lulz on 4chan, and he's going to create a real problem.
That's how Flat Earth started. That's how.
I mean, it's nuts. I mean, I think the internet is so scary in that respect that you get one person with who just wants to fuck with people, and he puts out some idea and people take it seriously, and the next thing you know, you've got some like bizarre revolution that just grew out of some just bullshit that people.
You're exactly right.
Think about Pizzagate with info where that guy went into that shop and shot up, or fired in the actual pizza place based on a story that he saw on InfoWars.
Yeah, and in fact, this was on the PBS News this evening. They said there was a guy with a QAnon sort of sign on the Hoover Dam with a gun that had a standoff with police over this already.
Real quick, Herman, do you have a pair of headphones you can get, Herman? Because we're getting bad echo.
I don't. I'll just mute it when I'm
QAnon.
He's talking and then he mutes himself in the middle of a sentence.
We should tell them about the Messiah that we have coming.
Oh, do we have to?
But Dr. Bowen found a gem. So if you think, if you were to say like now to Steve or I, there's no way you can top somebody that thinks dinosaurs were a hoax.
You'd be wrong.
We would tell you to hold our beer because we have found the step further than that. There is a gentleman that claims to be the reincarnated Christ. He's got a Twitter account and he's got a substantial following. Like of people, if you look at their profile pictures on Facebook, they're all in this like Jesus would wear, the white robe with the burgundy.
He has a cult following, legit cult following.
Yes, Dr. Bowen has taught one of the chosen into coming on and talking about it. Now
I got to tell you, he's got a great accent.
He does actually,
wonderful accent, God-given accent. Yeah,
we're supposed to play that tonight, but it's the his name is 1 second, I'll get you his name. It's the right here, Lord Rael, Rayel. Lord Rael.
Now, I want to get him and Lord Stephen Christ together in a room. Unfortunately, Lord Stephen Christ is now in federal prison for threatening the president. So that would be difficult now. But back last year, that would have been awesome to arrange something like that. Because Lord Stephen Christ thinks he's the reincarnation of Jesus too. So let them battle it out.
Well, he'll certainly be spending a lot of time on his knees.
You wonder what the real Jesus Christ would look like today. Like they would be some troll on the internet if they were here. You know, because you think of the real Jesus Christ was kind of a sort of an apocalyptic, sort of crazy person. You know, basically, I mean, there's a lot of biblical scholars that describe Jesus as this apocalyptic preacher who would go around preaching the end of the Roman Empire. Is really what his whole shtick was. And they would that's exactly what Jesus would be today, is some radical crazy person in some chat room on the internet. It's weird.
I had a conversation, or somebody sent me a message on Twitter saying that he thinks that Mary did not conceive immaculately, that she was impregnated by an alien race that gave birth to Jesus. That's the reason that Jesus was able to resurrect himself 3 days later, was that particular strain, him being half human, half alien, allowed him to slumber for 3 days until the coast was clear, and then up.
Well, immaculate actually means that Jesus was born without sin, not virgin birth. They're not the same thing.
Don't they say that though? The Immaculate Conception?
Yeah, the Immaculate Conception doesn't mean virgin birth. It means Jesus was born without sin, free of the sin of Adam from the fall. And
that refer to it as the Immaculate Conception.
No.
And two,
Mary had no sin.
You are using the words from somebody who thinks that it was impregnated from a predator.
So. Yeah, no, Mary was sinless, and that's why she can give birth to Jesus, because she was sin free. That was the Immaculate Conception.
I would say though that that would be one hell of a sci-fi thriller. I think.
Actually, I think there's a genetics lesson in this, because as I understand it, in the Bronze Age, people didn't have any conception of genetics, and they thought women were just sort of the receptacle of men's seed. And it's the man's seed that carried all the traits for the child. So the only way for Jesus to be immaculate and without sin would to be not descended from a man, to not have a man who's descended from Adam in there. So the immaculate part is without sin, but the only way that in the Bronze Age you could be thought of as being without sin is to be not sort of genetically didn't have that word related to Adam. So you would have to be sort of divine, or a virgin birth kind of situation. I don't think that Mary had anything to do with it. I think they did, because I don't think anybody thought that women contributed anything to their kids. They were just like a vessel, an incubator for them.
It was all through the male line was everything, because all patriarchal.
On the next 20 questions that theists can't answer on the next round that we do.
And somebody had mentioned Parthenogenesis, but correct me if I'm wrong. Parthenogenesis, Jesus would have been a woman, correct?
It depends.
Because I mean, I've heard humans can have Parthenogenesis, but it's not viable. It never makes it past like the zygote stage.
Yeah, maybe. I would assume it would be female. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yep.
As I was born into an atheist family, and I was brought up atheist, and never went to church, never read the Bible, none of that stuff. I'm thinking about. I'm not thinking about. I'm thinking if could I be able to debate a Christian, since I don't know anything. I mean, Croatia is mostly Catholic, majority Catholic country, but I don't know anything about. I read a bit of Bible Revelation, and I think it's a horrible book.
Can you do you believe that there are such things as talking snakes
No.
or donkeys?
Talking donkeys, no.
Right. Do you think people can get up after they've been killed and walk around again?
No.
And you're going to be set. You can debate away.
Well, I mean, I think theist arguments have come a long way since those kind of things. I mean, they try to get into more sophisticated things from like like
what?
Aquinas and stuff like that. And yet they're, I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't think any of them are good arguments, but the average theist out there is not going to be talking for debate wise, just basic Bible stuff. They're going to be trying to argue like argument from motion and
but that's the point, though. They won't go near the Bible stuff anymore because it's obviously, I mean, you can prove it wrong in 2 seconds, and their whole entire religion stems from that book. So if you want to argue around the periphery stuff, I think that's pointless when you won't go near the book that is the cornerstone for your faith.
But all they got to do is say, "Oh, yeah, I just take that upon faith." I mean, they're not. If they say, "Look, I believe that the serpent talked to Adam or some Eve, and the serpent was a talking snake," I just take that on faith. But I'm not positing that as a science thing. Then it's really not much you can work with that.
And I think their credibility goes up.
It doesn't really matter.
I think it is pretty important to be inside their head a little bit, and to do that, I think you have to have some familiarity of where they're coming from, because on the surface, normally someone who's an atheist or a scientist will debate a creationist, and they'll think, well, I'm just debating the science. This is about the science, and I'll explain the evidence, and I'll walk away the winner. And it's not about that, because if you understand where they're coming from, it's not just about knowing how the world works from a scientific perspective. I think actually knowing their interpretation of the Bible and what the Bible says and how other people interpret the Bible is actually very useful, because then you sort of rob them of this. What you want to do is rob them of this notion that it's them debating an atheist, and that's all creation and evolution debate is. It's not that. That's why I don't like Aaron Ra very much, because I think he's out to make people atheists instead of making people scientifically literate, which are not the same things. And I think he kind of makes a mockery of people's religious beliefs a little bit, maybe sometimes deservedly, but you're not gonna. It's gonna be an uphill battle to convince people if you come off like that. I think he only convinces people who are already on his side.
Yeah, I've said the same things. I mean, that's one of my criticisms of Aaron. Well, I love Aaron. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, my agenda is not to promote atheism, because I'm not atheist. But my agenda is to promote good science. And the downside of all that is, look at, like, for example, your debate with Kent, right? I mean, obviously you brought the science, and of course we all know Kent is scientifically illiterate, but I see no value to try to convince Kent of things that we've all told him a million times. I mean, everything. I don't think you really told him anything that he hadn't heard before. Have you?
Well, it's not about convincing Kent.
It's convincing the people watching. Right.
Yes.
Right,
and
exactly.
I think if the people who are watching an Aaron Ra debate, there's going to be team atheists and team Christian. And I think to have a real debate where you want people to learn the science, you have to break down that dichotomy, that it's not, these things aren't, there's no team Christian versus team atheist in science. It's just the science.
That's the way I look at it too.
Wild part, because Aaron will, or Aaron will, from my point of view, from the way I look at it, he will at the beginning state the science part of it. Where he gets, I think, he doesn't have that patience factor is like with Kent or with George. After he has answered the same question 4 times, he just doesn't have it in him to sit there and strum through it any further. So he hits that nuclear level, and then it's on.
I don't blame him for that.
Yeah, but I think he at least attempts to come to the argument with presenting that side of it in terms of just all out you're stupid thing. It always divulges into that because inevitably the other side isn't willing to budge an inch.
Yeah.
By the way, did Kent send you his videos?
What was he supposed to send me?
No, to Dr. Mays.
Oh,
at the end, Dr. Mays said he was going to send you.
Ken never follows up.
No, remember he said he was going to send him to me, and no, he never sent him.
Yeah, Kent never follows up.
No, of course he's not going to send him. I wouldn't watch him anyway. But one thing about Aaron is that if you bring up someone who's a Christian, like say you bring up Ken Miller, who's a Catholic and biologist, or who's the head of the NIH, late.
George Lujack?
No, not George Lujack. Francis Collins. So if you bring up Francis Collins or Ken Miller or like the Pope, and the Pope doesn't see anything problem. I don't think Aaron can use them as effectively as someone else in that debate could, because he thinks they're stupid too. I think he thinks they're stupid for believing in God, regardless of whether or not they get the science right. And that's my problem with them is I don't care if they believe in God or not. It doesn't bother me at all, but they get the science right. So they're on my side. And I think someone like Ken Miller or Francis Collins, he doesn't view as on his side because ultimately he thinks they're stupid because they believe in God. And that's really what bothers me is he's not using, when you do that, you're not using all your guns in the debate, because really someone listening who you want to turn is someone who identifies as a Christian, but believes Hovind and all these people that they can't be a Christian anymore if they believe in evolution. And you have to give them an out. If you don't give them an out, you're not going to bring them into the science part of it. You've lost it.
To me, there are 3 different, there are 3 different approaches, in my opinion. Like, you have the approach like you take, where it's solely about the science and the evidence in the case. You have somebody like Aaron, who is a bludgeoning weapon. When somebody just needs to be just shut down because they're like with Jeranism. Aaron did a beautiful job of coming in there and doing that. But then there's the in between, I think, like with what Anthony Magnabosco does. He comes in and his conversations that he'll have with people, like it just goes in a direction that normally you couldn't get in like what we do here on this channel. And I think that all 3 have their place, and all 3 can't be applied to every situation. You know what I mean? Like there are just some things where one approach is just the way that is going to be most effective. And like you said, not for the person that they're debating, but for the people watching, that maybe have followed this person. And
it takes a village.
Yeah. And I think you with Kent was pretty brilliant. Like I said tonight with Joe, you're able to explain things in a way that you're still getting all the facts and stuff in, but it's not to where it's going to like swamp everybody in terminology and they're going to get lost. Like you were able to present it in a way that was followable and made sense. And I think that's, especially in the evolution department, that's the hard thing to accomplish.
See, but I think that's 2 ways of looking at it. And one, every time there's a creationist evolution discussion, almost every single time it distills down to, as Herman said, Christians versus atheists. I mean, it always seems to devolve, for lack of a better word, into a faith-based thing rather than let's actually talk about the actual science. That's why when you have somebody that can go on like Dr. Mays and talk to Kent about science and literally show everybody how little Kent actually knew, I think the people that watched that made a huge difference, because I'm still getting messages. Kyle gets messages. We all get messages on how much people love these discussions when it showed how little Ken actually knew. And I think that was the goal.
Oh yeah.
So just by I hate to say the word dumbing it down, necessarily not is a good thing. I don't mind if people speak with the proper jargon, if they do it correctly, not like Drew Pearson's level. But if Herman, who is a professional biologist, a PhD in biologist, uses biological terms and use them effectively to shut Kent down, I'm completely fine with that, because people can go look up that stuff or have it explained later on. But Kent was lost. He was lost not only with him, but he was lost with Aaron too.
That's the beautiful thing. He didn't have to do that. Like I am the first to admit that, that kind of area would be hard for me to follow if you went into it with all the jargon and the just going about it in a academic way. Like you were talking to somebody else that was of equal caliber. But the way you presented it was you still got everything that you needed to know, and I was able to take something out of that and follow along. And that to me is harder to do than to present it in a way that you're used to doing on a daily basis when you're talking to your peers. Being able to convey those things to everyday people, I think, is a lot more difficult and something that's not as often done as it should be, I don't think.
Sure. Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and it is true. It is extremely hard. Like I can't tell you. Well, it's not just to dumb it down. It's to explain it. I mean, the truth is, and this is true for every scientist, we have trouble wrapping our heads around this stuff because none of it is really intuitive at all. That's the problem with it. Is thinking about things like deep time and common ancestry are not things that you experience in your everyday walking around life, and they're conceptual, and it can be very difficult to explain this stuff sometimes, and not just to explain it, but for me to understand it. And actually, one good thing that I get out of doing these things, as big a waste of time as maybe it is that the more I do these things, the better I understand the science, because I have to explain it to someone who's not coming from the same place that I am.
Right.
And I end up understanding it better, which is weird, but it's really true.
That's where you're going to kill.
We get too bogged down in the jargon, and it interferes with understanding it. When we have to get rid of all that, it makes me understand it better too. But it is extremely difficult.
That's where you're going to do well in this debate with Dr. Jeansman, because I think that the audience is going to be coming from his point of view. The ones who believe in creationism are going to be, I think, expecting, a bunch of scientific stuff that they're not going to be able to understand. And it's easy for them to just go, you know what, if it's that complicated, then it wasn't meant for me to get it anyway. But I think with using the approach that you did last time, you're going to be able to convey it in a way that's going to make them go, well, wait a minute, I can follow that, and that makes sense. Now, why isn't that lining up with what I've been thinking the entire time? And I think that's where people are going to have the difficult time in a good way.
Somebody just wrote this. They said Arnold had written, this is the first channel I've ever came across with actual bona fide scientists talking live. Really appreciate what you guys do, Steve McRae. Yeah, I mean, this channel actually started off talking to scientists. That's how actually this channel got promoted. We had many PhDs come on, and we were just talking about all kinds of different subjects, but not a very high level, but just not a basic level, but to explain people these concepts that are brought up a lot. For example, we had mentioned HE2, human chromosome 2. That's brought up by theists every so often, right? So a theist talking to somebody, they're going to bring it up, oh, well, human chromosome 2, and most the average person is going to say, well, I have known nothing about that, and so they just kind of move on. But I think when a creationist brings up something like that, it's refutable with them. It is explainable to them. I think it is not that difficult, and you can show them, hey, you're not putting forth correct information, because all you're doing is like parroting what they've read on Answers in Genesis or something. So I think there's something of value to be taken away by having experts come on and giving the 411 on some of these topics. And again, not super technical, but I don't want to have it dumbed down to the point where it just is like every other channel. I do like the fact that this channel, when we do the after shows, we can have people come on and have a little bit more higher discussion. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally makes sense. I mean, and I wish, that's why I think it's important for scientists to do this stuff, because, I feel like it's kind of our jobs. And if we don't do it, we end up leaving it to other people. And I'm going to pick on Aaron again. I'm going to feel like I've got a, obsession with him or something. But, you leave, if the scientists aren't doing that, then people like him come in and fill in the void and they start doing it. And I would even say that about Bill Nye, by the way, which, Bill Nye was not necessarily the person to have that debate with Ken Ham.
That was a horrible choice.
It was. And so I think when people who are experts in those fields say, well, I don't have time, or it's a waste of my time, then somebody else is going to do it. And that somebody is going to be someone who doesn't know anything about what they're talking about. and it just makes it worse when they do that.
Do you want to give us a preview of what you thought are the biggest conceptual issues with this book? Or actually, hang on. We're going to have to get some headphones, by the way, for your debate, because if not, it's not going to be workable, because that echo is just, it's harsh. But do you want to give us maybe a brief preview? Because it's, from what I was reading in his book, it's not so much what he says as what he doesn't say that I find to be the biggest problem. He seems to make assertions with not any real citation as to why, and everything he does cite is just young earth creationist stuff. He doesn't seem to really talk about any of the actual papers out there. And so I hate to say it's a fallacy of omission or a lie of omission, but are you kind of inferring the same things?
Sorry,
Steve,
guys.
Hey, hang on a second. Go ahead, Herman.
Steve, you are very, very perceptive, because that's exactly the argument I was going to make. Is I saw a YouTube video, some other debate with him, where he sort of said, there are no errors in my book, which astounded me a little bit, because first of all, there are errors in that book. And like you said, the biggest errors are errors of omission. There's a lot of stuff he either leaves out out of convenience for his argument, or he leaves out because he doesn't just know the arguments. And, he got a PhD in biology at Harvard, but biology is a huge field. And he's wrote a book about an area of biology that he has zero experience in, none. And there are huge sort of bodies of work that are relevant to what he's talking about that he completely ignores. So I think that'll be a lot of it. I mean, like, one example, there's a part where he keeps talking about the coalescent equation. And basically he just throws in this algebraic term that is a relationship between a mutation rate and divergence. That's not coalescent equation. The coalescent equation goes back to a pretty complicated set of mathematical algorithms and stuff that go back 30, 40 years. And he never talks that. And when he says something about the coalescent equation, he cites this thing that's this very trivial kind of algebraic term. He cites an undergraduate textbook on it. And it's not even talking about that. So he makes huge omissions in that book. Huge.
What you're saying is you're worried.
What's that?
He said,
So what you're saying is you're worried of going into this debate, right?
No, I don't think so.
Could you guys?
Well, I'll say this. That it's different than going into a Hovind debate, because he does at least have the vocabulary to where he can look credible, and I'm going to be forced to explain some pretty complicated things, like you said, Kyle, in an accessible way. So it's not going to be easy, but it's not going to be easy because he knows. It's not going to not be easy because he knows what he's talking about.
Right. Yeah. But that's like I said, that was your strongest suit, though. I mean, so really, I think he's playing right into your hand.
It kind of reminds me, you're talking about like he's using some very basic equations rather than very complicated differentials. There's a guy a long time ago. You may not have watched this particular episode, but a guy named Jay, a young Earth creationist. He was an adjunct professor, a mathematician, and he actually had came on, and I and a few other people were having a discussion with him. And he had the position that if Australopithecus was a real species, that he had calculated there'd be trillions of them, right? And we had looked at his equations, and he used a very simple exponential rate of equation with no death rate. I mean, just like bacteria, only they didn't even incorporate any death rate. It was just exponential breeding from like birth to death. They were breeding, and it was bizarre. And this guy was a mathematician. He was had a master's degree in maths, and we're like, do you not see the fundamental problem here that you're using such a very basic exponential equation, and you're not? We tried to find some of the actual equations that he should have used, and that math was just beyond me.
Yeah, and by the way, Jensen does that too. There's a part.
That's why it reminds me. Yeah, that's why I brought it up. It reminded me.
Yeah, he talks about the same thing, and that to me was one of the most rookie mistakes I've ever seen. For someone who has a Harvard PhD, it's just unbelievable that he would think that elephants are going to be replicating exponentially for 4,000 years.
And yeah, exactly. This is what's weird. I'm having a difficult time reading, because this is what I don't like about reading creationist books. And again, I'm very thankful that he did send it, and he is a nice guy. But I like reading actual science, right? And I don't want to fill my head with misinformation. And I'm not an expert but I know enough to when I read something says to me, something doesn't sound right here at all.
I had that same feeling when I saw the National Enquirer story about Bat Boy.
Oh, that's a true story, though. Raised by bats.
You think?
In the wild. Yeah. No, I don't know. But that's why I'm so looking forward to this discussion. But I don't want it to be. It has to be adversarial, but I want it to be in a way where you basically point out to him, look, these are mistakes. These are either omissions or just flat out wrong, and not be constrained by. He seems to want to limit about certain things, and I'm like, look, you're having a discussion about anything that's in that book or not in that book. I'm okay with having a topic of that. I mean, why should?
And that's what they agreed on, right, Kyle?
Yeah.
Isn't that what they agreed on to begin with? That we can talk about basically anything in that book.
Yeah, what we had to agree to is not to. I don't think they wanted to steer outside of anything from the book. You know what I mean?
Makes sense, right? Yeah, outside of his review.
If it could go in a different direction, that maybe I think ultimately what they're trying to protect, and I mean obviously this is a business minded thing, is the image overall of Answers in Genesis, because he's so plugged in and connected. So they want to keep it in a area where he's the expertise at, so as long as we stay inside the book, he can speak to that, because obviously he wrote the book on it.
Yeah, I mean, that's why you say, well, it's on page this, and this. I mean, obviously, I would agree. It shouldn't ever devolve into something that's not something he wrote about. I mean, why would you be talking about what Steve Austin would have written about, right? Why would you be talking about something like what the Humphreys would have written about? Those are different.
But these kind of talks can go into that direction if
sure.
Somebody says one thing and you want to jump on that because you see an obvious weak spot there. You want to go in that direction, because it's obviously it's exploiting a weak spot, but I think they're trying to protect the company's image as a whole. That's the take that I get.
I get that. I agree with you. But here's the thing: look at he talks so little about HC2, but basically said, "Oh, all the evidence now, new evidence has shown that it isn't a fusion," and he just glazes over it. And I'm like, "Are you fucking kidding me?"
Well, we're starting to get the mutation point.
Mutation rates and phylogeny, I think, are going to be the biggest things. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Mays or Herman, but his mutation rate things are just bizarre.
Yes, and that's the thing where, like Kyle said, it can move out into something else because, you know, he doesn't really talk about the age of the Earth too much, except for, well, he sort of just sets it up to where I'm going to assume the Earth, because I'm working from this model, is 6,000 years old, right? And one way he sort of avoids talking about better measures of mutation rates is he'll say, well, any mutation rates that are based on there being an old Earth, I'm going to throw out and ignore. And you can't do that because those are real things. So mutation rates, first of all, the only thing that's relevant in terms of mutation rates are neutral mutation rates. So all of these ideas about divergence and how long it takes for two genes to coalesce to one copy, all those things are based on a neutral mutation rate, not an overall mutation rate. So that's one thing he misses. So he uses these mutation rates that aren't entirely neutral. And then also he throws out anything that is based on any kind of study of mutation rates that incorporates some notion of an old Earth. So for instance, one way mutation rates have been measured is that people have taken DNA from archaic humans that they know they can date to be like 50,000 years old. And they can use that to gauge what the mutation rate is. It's genius kind of stuff. And so he would ignore that and throw it out. And so actually, if you look at all the literature on mutation rates, what you see is it's like they start out high if you look at very recent mutation rates, like between one parent and offspring. And as you start going through like pedigrees, it'll go down. And if you start looking at phylogenies, it'll go down a little further and it'll level out like that. And he is only talking about this end of that curve.
And he just extrapolates it further.
Yeah. Well, what it is, they're mutation rates from different types of measures. The ones on this end, the high ones, are from things like pedigrees. And then the ones on the other end that sort of level out at one level are from like phylogenies, where you say, well, I know the divergence between chimpanzees and humans is about 5 million years, and so we can tally up the differences between them. Well, he'll ignore those because he doesn't believe that there ever was 5 million years, right? So he'll just throw all those out, and he'll just use the ones on the end. The problem with the ones on the other end is they're filled with all these other types of mutations that aren't relevant when you're talking about a population genetic model of divergence. So he just totally avoids all that stuff. It's
how convenient.
Let me ask you, how do they reconcile not just the neutral mutations and the molecular clock, but how do they reconcile it with the corresponding data of things like cytochrome C conservation? You know, when you have all these amino acid substitutions that we can actually trace back, and we can see that the cytochrome C has diverged and how it's changed from different lines of phylogeny, and yet all that matches up exactly what we'd expect. It's not conflicting information; it's exactly corresponding information. How do creationists like Jensen kind of explain through that kind of stuff? Magic?
They don't.
They don't.
I mean, one thing too about that book is it totally focuses entirely on mitochondrial DNA, like from cytochrome and things like that. Nobody.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Nobody just uses mitochondrial DNA for the past 20 years. Nobody would build a population genetic model off of only mitochondrial DNA. Nobody. I would never be able. I publish papers in phylogenetics all the time, and I haven't published a paper with only mitochondrial DNA in, like 15 years probably. So he's totally ignoring all the other evidence. See, your whole genome has all these genes, and each one has its own history, each gene. And so you have to incorporate the histories of all those gene trees to get an understanding of the species tree. But he only focuses on one gene, which is the mitochondrial genome, which acts as a single gene. And he ignores all the rest because he doesn't know anything about it. So
do you think it's because of that, or is it because of that and the fact that when he incorporates all the other the main genome stuff, it shits all over his parade? I mean,
it's hard to say. It's hard to say. I think it's a little bit of both. I think I mean, now we're going to find out in September, but I think the bulk of it is he doesn't know anything about that literature at all, which is, there's a great irony in that, because the top guy in the United States who does this stuff on humans is I have his book right here, is David Reich, who's at Harvard. So he wrote this book about human DNA and our population history, and all this DNA they've sequenced genomes from archaic humans and Denisovans and Neanderthals and stuff. That guy was at Harvard when he was there. Like, you would think if he would have had these questions, he would have walked down the hall and talked to him about it. And that's what astonishes me, that the guy is right there and he's at school with him, the same school, and he never brings it up.
Do you think that he'll bring up ATP synthase though?
If he does, we'll get True in to have a discussion with him. Yeah, we'll bring the expert. No, I don't think he. Why would he? I think, like I said, I think he is.
That was obvious.
Book. It's obviously going to be more phylogenetics and stuff. But
96 times he used that word in that debate against Seigart, True and Seigart. 96 times he said ATP synthase.
It's one I'm not shitting you. This is the God honest fucking truth. He actually has one biology book. It is a nursing book. It is like page 263. Jade had that book. So it is the one page that talks about ATP synthase. That's the only thing that fucking True has ever read in his life.
It didn't matter what you asked him though. Like, no matter what part or where that conversation went, no matter what it was talking about relation to evolution, it always was back to ATP synthase.
And he still gets it fundamentally wrong, even though he's been corrected so many times.
Like, scream. It's almost like Rick with profound.
It's profound. And I happen to like it. I mean, I find it to be fascinating. The whole ETC is fascinating to me. I mean, I took it in biology in college, and I kind of wish I paid more attention to it back then. But it is how the cell works and how it builds ATP is an amazing thing. Don't get me wrong. I think it's magical in some ways, but I don't think it's teleonomic. I think, or teleological. I think it's teleonomic. I think there's obviously naturalistic explanations for it.
Intelligently designed.
But it is amazing piece of apparatus. I'm not going to front. But people like Ronnie, they just run with it and go, look, it's how to be inspired by some kind of intelligence. And Dr. Fuzz Rana does the same thing, who I really like, but he just did the same thing. He was talking about on his channel DNA replication. And, he's like, look how this replicates. It's clearly an intelligent design thing. And I'm like, I'm not seeing what he's seeing. I think it's amazing chemistry. Don't get me wrong, and how you have the leading strand, the lagging, and the fragments, and yeah, it's. But I think it's kind of haphazardly thrown together in how it works.
Yeah, you're exactly right about that. I mean, when I look at it, I see that complexity, and I'm like, this is crazy. This is over complex. And what happens is you better explain the complexity in nature or in biology from contingency, where you get stuck with certain things and life has to work around that. So and I know people always bring in, creationists always bring up examples from technology. So they say, well, a car is complicated and it has a designer, and a watch is, the classic is the watch is complicated. But the problem is, the better analogy would be like our computer keyboard. So your computer keyboard was made for a typewriter. And when the guy who invented the typewriter, the first ones he sold were the telegraph operators in the 19th century. And what they found was that the way he had the keys set up interfered with them. They got certain letters confused. And they said, look, we like this and we'll buy more if you set the letters up a different way that makes it easier for us to type Morse code. And okay, and that's the QWERTY keyboard you get stuck with today. There's no design on your laptop for that. The design is inherited from something else. So it's this history explains complexity, even in technology, better than direct design. And the replication, DNA replication example, that's crazy. I mean, because it would make so much more sense, and it would be so much less complicated if a couple simple things could be designed in there. Like the strands of DNA both go, they don't go in opposite directions, but they go in the same direction. If they went in the same direction, then you wouldn't have it be as complicated. Or if you had a polymerase that could copy DNA in 2 directions and not just one. That's why it's complicated, because life got stuck with those things and had to evolve around it. So it's history that explains that complexity better than design. They don't get that. They just say it's complicated, so it's God.
Yeah, I see it the way you see it. I mean, I look at it and go, okay, like you said, nature got stuck with this, anti-parallel thing and had to make it work, just because life finds a way. But can you imagine like learning how to type? Like I took typing in I think it was 7th, 8th grade. I don't know. Then but it was one of the best courses I ever had. But can you imagine learning how to type on a Dvorak keyboard, which a Dvorak actually supposedly is more efficient than a QWERTY keyboard. I think it actually has less errors, but nobody uses them, right? But can you imagine if that to me was better engineered, just like VHS and Beta. Beta was a better system, but VHS won out. So
do you think that eventually we will evolve to have longer thumbs?
Oh, because we text?
Right. We're always reaching.
Maybe. I don't know. I would say before that happens, we'll come up with some way to just transfer your thoughts to your phone instead of typing them at all.
If Lamarckism is true, then we would.
Yeah.
Lamarckism.
Okay, guys. Well, I actually have to go. It's getting late.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
My brain is out.
Yeah, and that you can tell Joe that he chickened out on talking to a
I'm kind of a little
scientist.
bit disappointed because I was trying to get him in for you, and also
maybe he's not so stupid after all.
You guys may have not
Exactly.
noticed. You may not notice, but we actually had a return of somebody in the live chat. Hyper Calvinist is back, and he wants to have a discussion. I'm really hesitant, but I told him I would. But the problem is last time people think I bullied him, or one person did. So I guess the majority didn't. Most people love the video that I did with Hyper Calvinism. But one person said I was bullying. And I'm like, look at Hyper Calvinism. He came at me. We had a discussion. I shut him down. I thought he hopefully had learned something because he left and nobody had heard from him. And now he's back and he wants to have a discussion again, which I'm always fine to do. But it's like, is he going to bring anything new? Because it's all just weird precept stuff. And
does that mean he's like a super Calvinist?
Well, Hyper Calvinists believe that that everybody's been predetermined to go to hell and to heaven, and nothing you do doesn't change anything. Yeah,
get out of here.
It's called hyper determination.
Well, I think it's hyperly.
Well, he's really into this whole lot of. Oops, sorry, Herman. We're gonna have to get some headphones. Oh my god.
Yeah, I gotta go anyway. I'll talk to you guys later.
Thank you, buddy.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Sweet dreams.
So real quick, I mean, he's really into the laws of logic and kind of stuff, but he didn't understand what I was trying to tell him, that the laws of logic only apply in classical logic. There's other forms of logic where they don't apply, and he thinks there's some immutable things in the universe. Even Aristotle himself argued against the law of excluded middle. So they're not some prescriptive things that must exist. They're not necessary components of the universe. And so he doesn't seem to grasp that. He lays all his eggs in one basket saying, oh, look, laws of logic can't account for God.
Is there a hypo-Calvinist?
There should be. That'd be like one that doesn't really bother, I guess.
we should make that a thing.
A hypo-Calvinist?
That they think it's a bad thing to be chosen. You know what I mean? Like they run away from
I met one. No, I've actually met one that actually he believed that he was a reprobate and that he was not elect, and he was like the only Calvinist I ever ran across that doesn't believe they're elect.
God, I mean, if you're going to choose to follow something, I mean, why would you go that? I don't understand. People really don't.
Hannah just mentioned something in live chat. I must have missed this part because I was fixing my keyboard, and because it's got some bad letters on it. But he said HIV is jumping genes. What?
I
must have missed that.
like I said, though, my brain
shut down. That's the point.
Blocked out a lot of that. It just would, temporarily incapacitate me. So
I wanted to punch the screen several times.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know what, guys? We do this for you, so you don't have to. We we have the hard hitting interview so that you don't have to expose yourself to it.
Well,
yeah.
Let's see what we got coming up here. So tomorrow,
Drugs.
We are doing the drug show. Should drugs be decriminalized?
Double header on Friday.
We are going to do the Adam and the gun show.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I told obviously Mel contacted you. I take it then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we arranged that. So we have a double header on Friday, guys. We're going to be doing a guy that's running for president. I think is it what he's running for?
He is.
Yeah, 2020, and then we have scientist Mel going to be doing a gun debate with somebody. Yeah, that's going to be cool.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So we're going to wrap this up unless you guys got any questions. I am still planning to do my argument from contingency. In fact, I might do it tomorrow morning if Sokka and Cirrus the Skeptic want to do it. I'm going to be trying to do more streaming on this particular channel. I only did this particular one as a hangout because it's really quick to set up. But I do want to use my XSplit and OBS more and get back into actually streaming. So I think the next show that I'm going to be doing is actually going to be more like a show format, and we're going to be talking about the argument contingency and why it's not really a good argument, and the fact that it doesn't explain anything. The whole point of the argument contingency is supposed to explain things, and yet it really doesn't. It doesn't leave you any more an understanding of what's called the principle of sufficient reason than any other argument. So we're going to be breaking that down, and I think it's a really great argument to break down because people have been bringing it up lately in other videos I've been watching, and they think that for some reason argument contingency proves God, and it's like, well, no, it really doesn't by any means. So
also, if you are a Patreon, we're having a private hangout Saturday. And we have a somewhat major announcement, and you guys are going to hear it first on Saturday. So
that's at 8 Eastern, by the way, people. Usually we have it early. No, wait, no, wait. I have it on schedule for 8 Eastern, but
4.
It'll be 4 Eastern. Okay.
4 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, we got to update the schedule because that's the only thing I go by. It actually says 8 here, but that's not right. Yeah.
That's 2 a.m. here. So.
Well, you can also, if we can't get you in that private hangout, one of the things that we're gonna do is I'm putting together like a it's kind of like a questionnaire, I guess, but it's gonna hit like your opinions on some things of the show, like direction wise, and then there's gonna be a spot for you to put like what days you're best available for something like a private hangout, and what I'm gonna do is try to map 2 out and do them in 2 sets. Because there's a lot of patrons on there, so we want to make sure that we get everybody in a way that we can actually have a conversation and it not be just everybody yelling at one time. So that'll be a way for us to kind of hit that middle ground with everybody. So that will be changing too based on people's availability. So.
All right, well, let's wrap this up. But like I said, I was fascinated by what I listened to on ideology, but at the same time, I'm kind of going to agree with Luca. I wanted to punch the screen. Nothing he said made any sense, even though we didn't get to talk about a lot of the things that he talked about. But these after shows are just about anything. So,
did we really expect them to, though? I mean, honestly, did we really expect anything less than what we got?
But he's one of those that never met a conspiracy theory he didn't like. Kind of guys. And when you start saying things like satellites don't exist and HIV is caused by jumping genes, I mean you're in a league of what the fuck on your own.
Right.
He's all over the place.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say my comments weren't at all an attack. Maybe when I said that it was a bit too much, I didn't really mean it like that.
Nobody's thinking like at all.
You enjoyed it, Luca. You always like watching this crap.
yeah. You've
been around a while, man.
And we like respond to the those kind of comments. Like the whole entire point of us doing shows is shows that people want to watch. You know, like if you don't want to go in a direction, like we have a vision that we're not going to steer away from, and as long as it lines up with what people are wanting to watch, then we're good. But anytime you get where it's either getting too much on one end, or some things are just like with the stream a couple of weeks ago, which I will not mention because it triggers Steve, but like that was an area we ventured off in and instantly saw that we needed to venture right back out of it. And
it's one of those things you dip your toes in, you go, okay,
it was not comfortable or pleasant, and so we decided that would be the one and only time that we would hit that particular issue. And you know, we don't take it personal, and we've got thick skin, and I think that's the way that you got to be. Ultimately, we want to produce a show that everybody likes to watch and hit that sweet middle spot of dumpster fires, because I think there is a sweet middle spot for that, and you can have the mostly educational stuff with a hint of just crazy, and sometimes the crazy is refreshing.
And I'm going to reiterate that you cannot have a thin skin and being on YouTube. You cannot have a thin skin and put the types of shows that we do and the types of discussions we have. Nothing's personal. I mean, you're talking about ideas. You're talking about
moon landing
beliefs. Yeah, but there are people. Look, remember Dell? I mean, how motherfucking personal did he want to make this shit? He was ready to come over to America and fucking, you know, try to give me a beat down. It's like, dude, I've never even talked to you before.
By the way, Steve and I would like to personally thank Jaronism for giving us the names Lyle and Deceive McRae, because we were about to do with that. It's going to be one of the best bits that we've ever been just handed. So Jaronism, thank you.
I do like that.
And that's not sarcastic.
No. He's really serious. We are going to be using those. Bram, thank you. He says, I like Steve because he presents factual arguments based on scientific understanding. That's important to someone like me. And like I said, it takes a village. I mean, we all bring something to the table, I think.
Do we all, though?
Most, I think. I mean, why you think there's people that come on that just have nothing to offer?
Yes, I can name about 3 of them.
I can think of a couple, but those people are no longer they don't come on any longer, though. And I don't want to mention their names, but there are a few people that I agree with you that offer absolutely nothing, and they should be shunned. And I just don't bother with them. But
it's a good thought. Yeah. Also, too, I would like to thank my my Tinder match who has been in the in the chat. There we go.
Andrew's like, I am never coming back. What the fuck did I get myself into?
Suffering through the you have to get that out of the way, I think, before anything else can happen. You know, if you're not down with flat Earth, it will just never work.
Exactly. Yeah. So Andrew, are you going to become a flat earther?
No. Don't follow Bob the rapper.
I gotta ask you, because obviously you're jumping into this whole little community bullshit stuff from somebody who has never really. I take it you've never been on YouTube before, right?
I haven't. No.
Okay.
Well, I probably should ask you this in private, but do you want to tell them that this isn't your first rodeo in terms of being out in the public?
Oh yeah, I'm surprised you haven't told them yet. So I actually was filmed for an episode of Catfish.
Oh.
So I've had my dealings with the internet and trolls and.
But have you dealt with flat earthers?
I have not.
Yeah, that's my biggest thing. I mean, everybody is, you know, we all live on the internet, but I mean, the experience of coming into this type of realm where you're dealing with people that literally fucking believe that the Earth is flat, that literally believe that we have not went to the moon, that literally believe that viruses do not exist. Where else can you find anything like that? I mean, it's just bizarre.
Where else would you want to find anything like that?
It is. I really like. I know you said that you didn't like Bill Nye in that one debate, but I really like his really short quip on rebuttal for flat earthers. It's like, I think he says something like, okay, I want you to get in a car and drive to the edge. And if you can't, it's not flat.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like Bill Nye. I have nothing against Bill Nye. I think he just was not the match for Ken Ham.
Yeah.
By the way, I don't know if you guys caught it, but he was on an episode of Catfish, so that's really not him in the picture.
Oh, no. don't encourage that.
I wouldn't even know what to begin on that. I never watched. That's a show. I think that's a show, right? Catfish is a show.
Where people pretend to be somebody else online, like they set up a whole different account.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine that. I don't. It's unfathomable to me that somebody would take the time to do that. I don't understand the reasoning behind it.
You should watch. I'll send you the link to his episode. It was
well. Send the documentary, Steve. I think you'll enjoy the documentary. The documentary is much more of something you would like to consume versus what it's become.
I'll definitely check it out. Sure, I'd be happy to actually. When I'm saying I can't imagine is like look at. I'm online a lot, and I've had an online personage for 5 years now. Or even probably longer if you count my Facebook. But I could never imagine going on in front of a live audience and being something that I'm not. That's why all my information is public. I mean, there's nobody can dox me, and people have tried to dox me, but it's like, dude, how do you dox somebody where the information is all public? I mean, my phone number's out there, my address is out there. You want my bank statements? What the fuck? I mean,
I finally got doxxed last night. I feel like I've made it.
You made it. You're officially a YouTuber. If you have not been doxxed or threatened to be doxxed, then you have
by a gentleman who is psychotic in this community, and he decided that he would put my phone number on a live stream. And the sad thing is, I only got one phone call out of that.
Oh, he's
sorry.
No, he's serious. He's serious. He only got one phone call, and he was already bummed out about it. He's like, "What? More people should be calling me. They have my phone number now."
Like.
But wait, did the phone number he give you was that the one that's on the same thing for the non-sec?
No, he put my actual phone number.
Okay.
Yeah. But he took the video. Like he had it up there for 2 minutes and then took it down. So.
See, I have two phone numbers. One is a voice over IP, which I don't give a shit. Anybody can have that one because it's easy to block.
How did I get dragged into that?
Fuck if I know.
Shit last night.
How did I? And then the very next episode, he's like praising us. That's
you did because I hopped on the non-sequitur account and went into the chat and let him have it, and I just didn't sign, love Kyle.
Oh yeah, you thought it was me. Yeah, he was like, I was watching that. G-Man's like, yeah, Steve Man's in the live. Steve is on his non-sequitur account in the live chat. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, I'm not.
Bitch made and saying he's going to have my ass on Sunday. It's a totally different meaning when it comes from me.
Oh man, I mean, I was rolling because I'm like, dude, that's not fucking me, G-Man. Jesus Christ, dude. But facts don't matter to these people. But anyways, well, Andrew, you hope to see you around more often. Hope he didn't scare you off too much, man.
Oh, absolutely not. Yeah, I'll definitely be around. I'm gonna stick around.
You survived tonight.
You survived.
Yeah.
He'll be having his own channel with 10,000 subs by the end of the year.
Probably.
I doubt it.
Me too.
Yeah, people say that, then they're like, "Oh shit, you know what? This is actually kind of cool." And if you got something to say, this channel originally started off helping other channels, and now the non-sequitur show seems to be the platform for that, this is great. We've given birth to a numerous amount of channels already.
I don't understand the business model, and I don't think that anyone would really want to listen to what I have to say. I don't think I'm that interesting. You'd be
surprised. You'd be surprised. I mean, everybody has their niche of things that they talk about.
Yeah, well, I mean, it wasn't our first. It was a sad thing at the start anyway. Like we were just going to do a podcast, and something happened, and overnight it just went berserk.
Well, I'm going to wrap this up so you guys can go do your thing. And Gage, I especially want to thank you for dropping by. I know you didn't get a chance to talk much, but I want to give you special props for all that you do and for chat modding and helping us out to promote our channel. I know you do a lot to advertise for the Patreon, and it is noticeable. I do note it, so I do appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
I hope you weren't bummed out, Gage, by our Twitter conversation.
No. I was just asking so I did, so I wouldn't push it anymore. I wouldn't tag him in anything.
It would have been good, but I don't think that's after learning what all we did. I don't think it's just something,
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm going to answer this one question, then I'm going to end this particular hangout. But I think it's a fair question, and at some point I've got to address it. I usually do this kind of stuff on my alt channel, which is a Great Debate Community channel, which is kind of a catch-all. But I'm going to do it on this channel Richie Rich asks, "What's your opinion on what G-Man did?" My opinion is pretty simple. I stopped dealing with G-Man ages ago when he disrespected Mel and Jade, and when he was promoting B17. And I even told Kyle, I said, "Look, I want absolutely nothing to do with G-Man until he stops being a death peddler and he stops bagging on Jade and apologizes to her." Which obviously can never happen now, unfortunately. But
I debated him in the first place. If it hadn't been for that, I would have never even come, you know. But I'm gonna let Steve answer that on how he feels about G-Man, and then I'll say what I think and see if Steve agrees.
Sure. So my opinion is this. Okay, I told this to somebody last night, so I might as well just tell you guys. This is the one rare instance where true empiricism was half correct. Usually he's like 99% bullshit, right? Or even 100% wrong. He's never right on anything, but he got half of it right last night. So I'm going to give him a little bit of props. People have been egging G-Man on, and people have been pushing his buttons. And the reality is G-Man has actual issues. Okay, he has literally physical and mental problems. And they took advantage of that, and they pushed him over the edge. They gaslighted. They went after him, and I'm not. You know,
who, Steve? Sorry, I don't know who.
Yeah, that whole group that was trolling him and got him fired and all that.
Yeah, I mean, I've never advocated you call somebody's work. I've never advocated to fuck with them in real life ever, and I'm against it. However, the flip side of that is that whatever has happened to G-Man, he has brought it on himself. I have no sympathy for him. Zero. He's an atrocious, reprehensible person. He needs to be held accountable for his own actions. He's and True is just lapping his bullshit up and trying to justify the fact that G-Man did something that's considered to be a cardinal sin in this community and on YouTube. You never fucking dox somebody. At that point, you're worse than a sniper.
Agreed. But but I don't think people can be surprised by how he reacted.
No, not surprised at all. That they were trying to push him over the edge. That was the whole goal.
Here's my whole
surprised by it.
Stance on the thing. Be careful to what links you go for fear that you might become the monster you're fighting against.
Yeah, that's smart.
I've seen that's very sage advice, actually. And look, there's a codependent relationship between G-Man and many other people. I've been extricated from that situation for ages now because I didn't like the direction it was going. I wanted something better. I wanted something better for my channel. I wanted the Non-Sequitur show back, in 6 months ago or so when we started it. I knew the potential it had.
Kyle, just cannot say it. You took the rose.
I took you. I did choose. I mean, no, flat out. I mean, I am like your heterosexual life partner at this point, because I saw potential, and we had talked for so long, and I said this motherfucker has got the game plan that I want, and that I've been trying to get done myself. We can make this happen, and we had set out goals, and you know what? I never told Kyle we're never going to reach those things. I was like, they're going to be difficult, but I think it's totally doable, and I think we had a good thing from the start. Yeah,
but yeah, I think people should not be surprised. Like, they got the man fired from his job. Now, whether he deserved that to happen or not is a completely different story. But that alters people's livelihood. You know what I mean? Like, that changes things in a big way. And I don't think that, me personally, I don't think anybody, despite the reprehensible things that he's done, and despite that I think he is a shitty human being, that can't, I don't think, set well with anybody.
Is that potentially a liability for you all?
Not for us.
No, not for us. We're not involved.
We're isolated. I will swear on my daughter's life that I had absolutely nothing to do with him getting fired or the Ridgeways. I don't deal with any of them. Yes, I know who they. I know about them, and I know who they are. I did not join them. I don't lead them. I don't associate with them, and I've even told them I don't want to know what the fuck.
Yeah, we're just warriors, but that's not a good thing, and. Some people say he deserves it. Some people say that he didn't. I think that, like I said, you have to, at the end of the day, be able to look yourself in the mirror, and some things that you're willing to do to get at some people just makes you as horrible, if not more horrible, than the person you're after.
And think about this though, Kyle. These people that have done this have now opened the floodgates for people to go after them and their families.
Well, it just never ends well. I mean, none of these things ever end well. Ever.
No, they don't. But I don't want to hear anybody ever bitch. Oh well, such and such, called me at work or anymore. If they were part of that group that supported that, right? I mean, G-Man he threatened me many times, right?
My thing is this though, like I wish I had the time to sit around and come up with plots to call somebody's work all day long and do that. Like I don't have that desire, and I don't the drama thing, the need for drama sometimes is just so crazy to me. Like you do something else than drama. Like look at drama, wave at it, laugh at it when it doesn't involve you, but ultimately move the hell away from drama.
Yeah, I mean that was the main split before, and even G-Man, the one thing he ever got right was the main split on the GDC was I wanted to take it away from the drama, and other people wanted to keep the drama. Well, now you have people that can watch both.
It did feel good though. That hangout that I had with G-Man where I got to call him bitch made like for 90 minutes. That was fun. That was fun.
Well, he is bitch made. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, yes, even though he has physical and mental issues, I'm still going to treat him.
It's gone too far, guys. Let's let it go and move on and grow up and disband all of these Garys or whatever's running around. You know what I mean? Just like do something else.
I think they're going to have to. I mean, if G-Man and True leave the YouTube, which by the way they said they're going to do them numerous times,
they're not going to leave YouTube no more than Brett Keane will.
I don't think they are either. Although that True did get porn bombed, so he got a strike on his channel, I think.
By the way, Brett Keane, I'm still waiting on my answer. If you're listening,
Brett Keane doesn't listen to this. Brett Keane and I just parted ways many moons ago.
Well, we've been at it on Twitter, so Brett Keane, invitation's open. You're removed.
Brett, I'll have a conversation with Brett. I mean, he can come on the NonSequitur show. I don't give a fuck. But I'm not a big fan of his.
He's considering it. He said
he knows my position on him. I mean, I've never been hesitant to tell people what I think when it comes to certain people. And Brett Keane is one of those people that I thought was the lowest of the low. But yeah, Peachy Keane says Brett Keane is still a thing. Apparently so. I thought he had basically gone to the realm of obscurity, but apparently he's back or trying to make a comeback. So
we'll get into that another time. There's way too many layers to that.
There really is, actually. It's bizarre, actually. But anyways,
so who has a cool quote they want to end things on?
Andrew, got a cool quote?
What now?
Got a cool quote you live by?
Yeah, to end things on.
I'm fresh out. I wouldn't even know what to say.
I'm fresh out. That would work, I guess.
Yeah, I'm fresh out.
I'm fresh out.
I'm fresh out. So we're out.